this is William, and this is the beginning of the William Show, and Ellie's getting me set up here. It's the 13th day of November already. On the 11th, we had Veterans Day, and to all you service folks out there and Gold Star families and those of families who served, thank you for your sacrifice. I certainly appreciate it, and I know many others do as well. So we had some bad news this morning. There's 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Crew members of the MH-160 Black Hawk went down, and 5 crew members were lost. Mm-hmm. So we have 2 pilots, Stephen R. Dewey, 38, of Clarksville, Tennessee, Shane M. Barnes, 34, of Sacramento. Both were Chief Warrant Officers. We have Staff Sergeant Tanner W. Groen from Gorham, New Hampshire, and we have a Sergeant Andrew P. Southland of Apache Junction. And there was another one, and somehow I didn't get his name written down, but we're sorry for the loss for everybody on that crew.
Wolf.
Now, this is a crew.
Is it Sergeant Cade Wolf? Is the one you didn't get?
Yeah, I believe it was. So they were involved in an air refueling mission out over the Mediterranean near an island, and they had an in-flight emergency, and we don't know exactly what has happened yet, but we do know that it went down, with all 5 being lost. So there was no special forces on board with them at the time. Blackhawks usually fly with a pilot, a co-pilot, flight engineer, and two door gunners, and one of them's I believe the flight engineer does winching as well, up and down. So that's bad news out near USS Kennedy aircraft carrier. All right. Now there's some concerns because there's been a number of Army Air Service crashes recently. We lost 3 out of 23 in Melville Island, Australia. We had 2 copters had a collision over Kentucky with 3 lost, and we had another collision over Alaska. All of these with rotor aircraft. So that's bad news. I'm sure that it's being looked into with a lot of scrutiny. I know that the Army is been very busy with ops tempo right now, and hopefully they'll be able to get more recruits so they can spool down that ops tempo a little bit. All right. Moving on. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, they're in Arkansas with Ellie, has announced that ExxonMobil near Magnolia, Arkansas, southern Arkansas, I understand, is going to drill a well so that they can pump lithium, and Arkansas will get a bump out of being able to provide finished lithium, meaning it's mined and ready for use. So that's good news out of Arkansas. I don't know how.
They've been fracking here for about 20 years.
Yeah, a lot of oil comes out of Arkansas, but this is different because they're going to be trying to pump up lithium.
Right.
Which, how it works, it's like when they run a drill into a salt dome, they push water down and bring the salt brine up, and then they refine it. Well, this is kind of the same, but of course lithium is not a salt like table salt, but it is a mineral and it will come up. So that's good news. Now, former President Donald Trump's sister passed away today, and we're sorry to hear about that. I know that there's been some political back and forth between them, but nobody wants to lose a sister, and my heart goes out, and I'm sure all your hearts go out to the Trump family with this loss. So, yeah, that's that. Now, this is big news. Biggie news. I don't know if everybody's heard about it yet, but I-10 in Los Angeles had a fire beneath it. Now, they had been a business nearby, or the city had been allowing pallets to be stored under this freeway overpass. And pallets are made out of oak. And when they're stacked, there's all this air gap in between each one. So when this fire got going underneath this overpass, it was so hot that it set the asphalt on fire on either on or off ramp right near it, and there were flames just wrapping around both lanes, north and south. And the fire brigade commander said that it's not likely that this is going to be a short-term incident, and people should get ready to make other routes and perhaps work at home if possible. So I have some more information on that a little later. I've been soaking up the information as fast as I can get them here. Information as it's kind of been popping up today. So in Washington, D.C., Naomi Biden Beals, Secret Service agent, found somebody trying to break into a Secret Service vehicle. Now, I don't know if you understand these vehicles, but they have in them what the Secret Service agents need when they're on the road. So having somebody try to break in is really bad news. It's not like your standard police vehicle. They've got gear, okay? Think of them as domestic special forces. So a Secret Service agent opened up and fired his gun at the person trying to break into the vehicle. Nobody we understand was hit, but the individuals trying to jack the car fled in a red car, and I guess there's a bolo out for them right now, and they're being looked for. Now, we don't think Naomi Beal even had any idea this was going on. She may have been in a building someplace else. This was just a parked vehicle out by itself. Okay, so that happened today, or over the weekend. Now we have information about Tim Scott. He's dropped out of the presidential race, so the pack of people running, the group of people running for president is thinning down a little bit. So we expected that about this time, as people start running out of money or see that their livelihood and their time might be better spent doing other things. So there is some more attacks were fired upon our U.S. forces in the region of Syria and Iraq, and so F-15s attacked an Iran IRCG base in eastern Syria, and they're associated with Hezbollah, and that one of their bases was attacked in response. Now, U.S. top officials flew to Qatar, and they're trying to push for a freeing of the hostages. And according to information from Israel, Netanyahu says there is a possibility of a deal between Hamas and prisoners for exchange of their Hamas fighters that have been captured. So that's going on. And the reason they're flying to Qatar is because the official that is in charge of the forces in Gaza is actually in a nice apartment in Qatar, leading the whole thing remotely, kind of like, I guess, I don't know, Ellie, working at home, huh? Something like that. So there was a debate with the Republicans on MS or on NBC, and Vivek Ramaswamy basically verbally attacked the RNC chair, Ronna McDaniel, saying that she's not going to be able to win in 2024, and that every time she's involved in one of these races, there's a loss, almost every time. And Ronna says that abortion's is not as big an issue as people think that it is. So I don't know. I don't think it's in Ronna to win in 2024 myself. I've watched her. She wants this whole thing to be, a city council meeting, and it's not. It's like Larry used to say, it's a full contact sport, and she's not up to full contact sports, I believe. Okay. Lincoln says today that there's been far too many civilians that have been killed, and that I'm wondering if the State Department's trying to direct the Gaza war. And yeah, that is what it is. Now, I'm going to jump around back to and from Gaza, but right now we're going to jump down to Austin, Texas. They've had a stabbing and shooting stabbings with 3 dead, according to the lady police chief in Austin, Texas, and we'll probably be hearing more about that today. I got information that an Australian it's been hit by a major cyber attack. Now, with these port operations, they have to go out onto the World Wide Web so that people that are shipping to and from them, right, can monitor where their goods are, whether they're in transit, how far out they are. You get the idea. And it makes, because this is a semi-public information data base, it can be more easily attacked because it's not behind an absolute firewall, because you have to keep updating continual information to their server so that people know where their goods are in shipping. And yeah, they got hit pretty good. And the Australian cyber directorate, I guess you would call them, are working hard to try to get those channels opened up. It has stopped operations at 2 ports right now, from what I understand. So there's Pacific shipping going on right there. Next, we have in our news a push right now because, we just had Veterans Day, and the government is pushing a new Veterans of Color, right? Not getting their services as American vets, and are not getting their adequate benefits due to their race, according to the government. So that's going on today as well. Wow, we're already 22 minutes in. What fun. Okay. Down in Mexico, I guess towards central Mexico, we had 123 migrants rescued from an abandoned trailer in central Mexico. Apparently somebody heard a bunch of banging on the side and screaming and called the police. The locked semi-trailer was then opened up. They found 123 migrants, 34 of them children, from Guatemala, El Salvador, Ecuador, and, oh my God, I can't even read my own writing here. Honduras, there we go. My H looked like an A. So that happened in Mexico. We now have 3,000 migrants in central Mexico protesting and demanding for transit visas so that they can get transportation through Mexico to the U.S. border, so they don't have to deal with the coyotes and have to jump on trains and all the other crazy stuff they have to do to get down the road. So they're demanding that from the Mexican government. I guess we'll see what happens here into the future. Kind of along that same vein, in Texas, we had a car chase that ended terribly. There was 8 individuals in the car, most of them Guatemalan migrants, and they lost their lives in the police chase when their van rolled over and basically exploded into pieces. It was, from what I saw, it must have been going at quite high speed. We've had a number of arrests in Chicago. There's a protest in front of the Israeli consulate in Chicago, and I saw a number of Arabic-looking individuals being arrested and taken into custody there. So, I understand today or so, President Biden will be meeting with his counterpart from the communist country of China. And from what I understand, this is going to be happening in California, in San Francisco. Now, although well, Gavin Newsom has declared an emergency on the I-10 situation fire department because of the fire on the I-10 situation in LA. According to Kristen Crowley, I believe she's the fire marshal there, she says it's not likely to be over for a long time. And yeah, even the asphalt was on fire. I mean, not just like smoldering, I mean, way on fire. Like if you set a tank of kerosene on fire, big fire. Now, with President Xi and 21 other leaders from the Pacific Rim meeting in San Francisco, Gavin Newsom has ordered that, the streets have to be free of, those candy bars that are laying around all over the place, and, has to be clean. And it had to be picked up and in nice order, or President Xi would not come to San Francisco. So Gavin has received his marching orders, and I guess San Francisco is getting its first major cleanup. And, this kind of shows to America who's really in charge when it comes to, candy bars and needles on the street. And, President Xi does not want to see any Hamas protesters while he is there as well. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, he was over there, Gavin was over in China, a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Now he's back here. Now they're saying he might be the president, who they're going to try to run for president, because, Biden probably is going to make it to the end of his term, and they'll have to bring somebody else in because, vice president might not be able to do her stuff. There's no Speaker of the House, of course, even though there is, could do the job. You get the idea. Gavin's going to run for president. Everybody get ready. And from what I've heard out there on the street, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. may very well be the spoiler that gets Gavin into the presidency, so that, the Republican leader for president might not get the office. So that's going on. Everybody kind of be ready for it. It's going to be, good old.
Like I said earlier,
chaos.
William, it's like what was it, Ross Perot? I think.
Yeah. With the Clintons, right? Because he's a spoiler for George Bush.
Yep. And it worked. And
it worked, and the two choices were pathetic. Sorry, I had to say that. Both choices there were absolutely pathetic. Now, I, as a serviceman, had run-ins with, some folks out of D.C. So I wasn't really too, what's the word to use, fond of certain political shenanigans that came out of D.C. that I had to deal with. And, of course, it wasn't President Reagan that was causing them. So I was personally happy to see that Papa Bush was moving on. I just had no idea how bad the Clintons would be. So that's that. Moving on. Let me see where this is. Texas, McKinney, Texas. there's been an aircraft accident. A Lance Air 4P, so it's a Lance Air 4-person general aviation aircraft has overshot the runway, sliding out of overrun and into a public street where a automobile struck the side of the aircraft. We don't know how many people have been injured, but there was an aircraft car accident today in McKinney, Texas, according to Blanco Lirio. Now, Blanco Lirio, he's a captain that flies, I believe, Delta. Anyway, he flies 777. He flies to Paris and back to the United States, then to Australia and back. But he's a big proponent of general aviation. And whenever there's an accident, as soon as the FAA accident report comes out and they get all the information from the towers and all the flight tracking information, they go through and try to figure out what has happened with an aircraft, come up with the major possibilities until, of course, that FAA final report comes out, and then the general public is notified of it through the Blanco Lirio channel. Now, what's great about that is there's a thing called hangar pilots. Now, hangar pilots is what pilots talk about in the hangar with respect to what somebody should have done in that situation. If X occurs, what's the next thing you should do, and what's the emotions you're going to feel just before you do that, and how to get yourself back into the zone once you've figured out that, oh my gosh, I'm in a life and death situation here. So this information is very good information for our general aviation pilots all over the country, and in fact all over the world. He reports on stuff in Indonesia, India, Myanmar, wherever we have good data on small aircraft accidents and also firefighting aircraft accidents. So, yeah, a Lance Air 4P, that's a fast little aircraft, overshot the runway. I don't know if it was a brake failure, if they came in too hot, even if they had power when they were landing. We just don't know. What we do know is there was an impact between an automobile and the side of a Lance Air aircraft on the 11th. Okay. Now, in Israel, I was listening to somebody, and it was, oh my gosh, what was it? Anyway, a reserve officer in the Israeli military says that now that they have, and he's in southern Israel, but they have now in Israel 200,000 IDPs. Now, an IDP is an internally displaced person. That's people that have been pulled back from borders and brought into the center of Israel to the point that they can, and put up in hotels, in people's homes, and still trying to, do the business of life and contribute to the nation. Anyway, there's 200,000 of 7 million people are internally displaced now with this Gaza war. And at the same time, the Arab League has met in, I believe it was Riyadh. Let's see, hold on if I got it. Anyway, in one of the large, in Saudi Arabia, all right? And they're saying that there's a red line that and Iran showed up here at this meeting and was greeted. So at this meeting, they said that there's a red line, and that red line would be over access to Jerusalem in the future. So I doubt that's going to be a terrible problem, because the Israelis have never tried to keep, for any period of time, Muslim folks from going up on the Temple Mount. So that's that. Now, for Saudi Arabia, this is, according to this general or colonel, I'm not sure which he was, they're having to kind of like dance between the raindrops, is what he said, with respect to the politics going on in the region. Now, if you're an Arab leader, you have to be afraid of two things primarily. One is your neighbors, and two is the people in your own country. All right? And at the same time, dealing with the growing Gaza Death to America crowd and all the political fallout from that. So we've got Persia and Arabia getting together, including the Turks, who consider themselves Islamic, right? So, yeah, we've got our ally Turkey, that we have U.S. military bases in a meeting with Iran at the same time. It's not a good look. I don't think it's a great idea. And the officer said that this is actually what's going on is two different things. So short term, Israel is trying to take out Hamas as a fighting organization. Okay, there's two parts to Hamas. There's the governing part and there's the military portion. All right, so they're trying to dismantle the military portion. That's the short-term goal. The long-term problem, though, is this is becoming a religious war in long term, and he's calling this thing, because of what we're seeing throughout the world with all the protests, what we're seeing with the Arab League in Saudi Arabia, all right, with the whole death to America, death to Israel crowd going on. He's calling this Sharia supremacy is what we're seeing bloom right before our faces right now. And I think he's accurate. I think the description is apropos. So that's what I gleaned from this officer I listened to earlier today. Now there is a hospital, Quds Hospital in Gaza. Within that hospital, a Hamas fighter fired on an Israeli tank with a rocket-propelled grenade, which is something they do from the front of the hospital. Unfortunately, fire was returned by a tank, and he and 20 of his friends in the immediate vicinity of him were killed. So that's a sorry situation that one guy with an RPG had to get 19 others eliminated. That's a tough situation. We're going to see a lot more of it. You know, I keep hearing this surgical strike stuff going on in the news. Look, with scalpels, you can do surgery. With lasers, you can do surgery. With bombs, you cannot do surgery. With tank shells, you cannot do surgery. Sorry, there is a target that's a military target with hostiles that have been verified in that area, at that moment, and if you are a civilian at that moment, chances are you're going to be collateral damage. Don't be around hostile fighters in a war zone. Kids, don't do it.
And
It's an excellent way. It's
did,
an excellent way to end up dead. If you see something like that going on, start running to the other side of the building and get out. Keep going.
now,
Put your hands up in the air so they can see you don't have weapons and run from the area. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ellie.
there was reports that Hamas is holding people in the hospital hostage and using them as human shields at the same time than being surrounded on three sides and
This is
firing.
a different
They're
hospital.
firing
This
upon
one's
Israelis from the hospital.
Yeah, this is a different hospital. This
Okay.
is the Quds Hospital, not the big hospital in Gaza.
Okay.
So there are
I got ahead of
five
myself.
So there's 5 hospitals in that area, plus other clinics. All right. And this was a minor hospital, whereas the major hospital where they do all the neonatal trauma level 4 stuff is the hospital you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it is surrounded on 3 sides. But there is a corridor straight out the front door of that hospital that will allow people to leave the hospital. Now they can leave either on foot, chairs, gurneys, or ambulance. The Israelis are letting them leave, and they're protecting the sites. Now, Hamas attacked that corridor with Gazans in the corridor, and a number of people were killed. The Israelis fought the Hamas back and opened that corridor up once again. And right now, according to Israel, that corridor is wide open. So if you have the opportunity to leave that hospital, I suggest you do. This is a bad situation. If you stay in the hospital, it's going to go from bad to worse. All right. Now, there's a couple of things, kind of driving this thing that's going on in Gaza. One is Hamas is very successful in their assault on Israel, the military assault they engaged in, right? Multiple access to Israel, land, sea, and air. They had divers, they had aircraft, they had what in America we call a SAW, a squad automatic weapon. So that these are heavier than like M16s or M4s. They're more like belt-fed 30 calibers, really violent rounds, like I guess 308 would be the caliber. So Hamas had those kind of weapons. They were opening up on, of course, concert goers and in homes of people. And so right now we have one of the Republican candidates for president of the United States, Mr. Christie, who is in Israel touring all those areas, so that there can't be some ambiguity about what happened on October 7th. Now, the military in Israel rallied pretty quick to repulse these guys once they understood what was going on, but it took them a little while, and they've lost some people because they were not ready. So there was an initial failure, and because of that initial failure, this IDF is a little zealous to ensure Hamas is taken off. They don't want to end up in a situation where they're caught flat-footed again. according to Jack Posobiec, the English Parliament currently is in the pocket of the CCP. You have Prime Minister and now one of his, a guy that was voted out of Parliament coming back, and neither one are voted into office. They're both appointed, and he's saying right now with what's going on in Parliament in England, what was transpired at Trafalgar Square on the 11th, where protesters, pro-Hamas, Gaza protesters, demanding a stop to the war, denied veterans and people selling the little poppy flowers people pin on their vests on Veterans Day. And remember, Veterans Day is celebrated all over the world. It's not just here in the United States. This was the end of World War I when all the guns fell silent after World War I, and all those millions dead from the trenches, right? All quiet on the Western Front. You've heard that before. On the 11th day of the 11th month at the 11th hour. And veterans of World War II were denied being able to go up on the steps of Trafalgar Square because of these folks that were protesting. It got heated between the protesters and the vets, and the English bobbies had to come in and push the folks away from each other because it was about to go off. Okay, there's that. Carolyn Wren, I guess she ran against Ronna McDaniels when there was that election, and Trump gave the nod to Ronna McDaniels and she became the head of the RNC. She thinks that Ronna ought to step down, and she's willing to take the reins of the RNC so that Republican, because what she said, and I agree with her on this one, Republicans can't afford to keep losing, right? So there's that going on within the RNC right now. Next. Yeah. So the FBI, it turns out, has been instigating a purge within the DC field off, or the DC headquarters, I guess, is it the Hoover building? Anyway, and the ones that were targeted were folks that questioned, whether they were going to get the jab, and were veterans and Christians. And if you fell into those three items, you were targeted to be run out of the FBI in DC. And people were doing it, following orders. And I want to remind everybody in DC that it doesn't matter if you lose your paycheck. It does not matter if you lose your job. What does matter is upholding your oath. That comes before everything else. Everybody that works in civilian government, for the FBI, the DOD, DOJ, they all swear allegiance to the United States. Now, we have an additional problem, not just a problem with the FBI. According to Randy Taylor, there's also antagonists, considered political antagonists, anti-globalists by the FBI and CIA, and both agencies are active in that at the moment. For instance, okay, and this has been going on for a while, he says folks like Bill Gates, even Mr. George Soros, Barack Obama, were CIA constructs. So there's been a war being waged upon anti-globalists in the United States using these CIA, FBI constructs. Now, Axios says currently in the State Department, there is an uprising again in the State Department against Biden for spreading, quote, spreading disinformation. 100 State Department and here's a public-private thing, USAID officials say that Biden is was spreading disinformation on October 10th. Now, he was talking about those people, they were talking about the people who were injured by Hamas on the 7th, and that President Biden had said that they would back Israel in their war with Hamas. So this is according to an internal memo that was gained access to by folks within the State Department. So you've got people actively within the State Department. Now these are Democrats, by the way. These aren't Republicans. So there's now a schism within even the Liberal Party over pro and anti-Hamas. So if you're a Democrat and they find out you're pro-Israeli, or if you're a Democrat and they find out the pro-Israelis find out you're pro-Hamas, you're on the line. So everybody needs to be aware that there's now a bifurcation happening. And they were upset with him because of, one, spreading, quote, misinformation, and two, due to saying that Gazan terrorists had been engaged in war crimes. They say no, they are not engaged in war crimes. It is the Israelis that have been engaged in war crimes. So the deep state in the State Department believes that they should be the arbiters of foreign policy. Now, guys over at State, you took the oath. The President of the United States issues you orders. Your job is to make sure that the President's orders are cared for and done in a reasonable, timely manner. All right? He was voted in. He went through the election. None of the rest of you did. You could be replaced, according to what I heard. So that's that. We've got, pro-Hamas and pro-Israel folks not getting along even at the deep state. And I guess the memo went on up to our commander-in-chief. Not a good situation. Next, it turns out because of what's going on in the State Department, that Iran has therefore infiltrated part of the State Department and USAID. We can assume that's the case. Now, we know that Nazi interests have infiltrated part of the State Department and other parts of the government. Take a look at the actions of Victoria Nuland and make your own judgments there. And we also know that there's been, infiltrations by the CCP through public-private partnerships and major banking interests that are doing banking with not just here in the United States, but with the Asian Rim countries, including.
And then there's the ambassador to Iran is pro-Iran.
Yeah, no. When an ambassador goes someplace, they should know about what it is that they are doing in that country. Now, they shouldn't be saying that they're pro or against anything.
Mm-hmm.
We had like I don't know, ambassador. There's a guy from Utah that ran for governor there. Anyway, he became ambassador to China. He spoke fluent Mandarin because of his business dealings. He's the guy that did all the styrofoam packing for boxes you get your television in, or your appliances in. Anyway, yeah, but he didn't go and say he was pro-China or pro-United States or anything like that. He went to be a neutral arbiter between our Department of State, right, and the President of the United States. That's how that's supposed to go down. And it doesn't matter what your personal feelings are. What matters is that you execute in a timely manner the orders of the Commander-in-Chief with respect to foreign policy. That's his realm. Now, Congress has the right to declare war. The President cannot declare war. That's the one war powers that the Congress has. But everything beyond that, diplomacy, how we interact with other governments, whether there's this, that, and the other going on between, whether we get along with their extraditions or situations where there's prisoners that need to be exchanged, or the Better Business Bureau seriously gets involved through these embassies, so that business interests in places like Communist China can be interacted with, but the people the embassy knows where all the U.S. citizens are basically in China. Now, we've had infiltrations through China through our public-private partnerships now, and our business partnerships with China. Now, I forgot the gal's name over at the Fed that just went to China, the blonde lady. Do you remember her name, Ellie?
Which one? Yellen?
The blonde, Yellen. So Yellen went over and basically reversed our decoupling from China and said, oh no, we're not going to decouple. We just want to have more equal trading between Communist China and the United States, which is just, she's not an elected individual. She was assigned by the president, okay? And she just decided to upend foreign policy. And, she's getting pressure from these mega hedge funds and banking entities like, BlackRock, Larry Fink over BlackRock against State Street. And I'm sure China is talking to Sequoia Capital right now in San Francisco. So, yeah, that. So we have to start watching for how people react to situations around the world with respect to who you are within agencies of the government so that we know what your allegiances are, apparently, if you're in those agencies. So that's bad information. Now, I have lots more information on the IDF and what's going on in the war, and we also have that privacy issue Ellie had with OnStar and Ford and Honda and civil rights. We'll have to get to that at another time. So I'm going to end with just this one last story, and then, you know, if you find any of this information, have we seen Linda come in yet? Well, Linda, if you're listening to out there, happy birthday. Ellie wanted me to say so. And,
yes,
you know,
happy birthday, Linda.
Yeah, happy birthday. Everybody should have their day once a year, right? That's a great time. One other thing is, if you're in a chat room and you're getting involved in chat back and forth someplace else, you can name drop us. You don't just have to do a share linking us. You can name drop us. If you think this way, maybe you should be listening to, you know, give us a shot. If you leave a comment, any comment you leave us will show more action between the viewers and this side of the telephone or the computer. Anyhow, it will make sure that we get notified. Now, today I wasn't notified for 5 minutes on Ellie's first show. And if I hadn't gone looking for her channel, I would have never seen her channel come up. So, yeah, happy birthday, Karen says. And Susan says that she's here. Trump may have Tucker as his VP. Well, I understand he's going to be traveling around with Trump, so he'll have a news service on the campaign trail. It sounds like maybe not a bad idea, considering all the negative heat Trump has been getting with respect to courts right now. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. Share us in the chat rooms. Share us anywhere you can. Any interaction you can give us in the comments or on the live chat or thumbs up. Even thumbs downs are better for us, right? It shows interaction. It says people are listening to us. And the more people listen to us, the more YouTube makes money through commercials. The more they make money, the more they want to get us out in front of more people. And we want the truth to get out. We believe we're getting a good, balanced aggregate of what's going on in the world on a daily basis as it comes out, and remembering what's happened in the past. Like with all this chaos and confusion going on right now, everybody watch the central banks. Call your senators and say, we do not want the digital dollar under any circumstances. You can just separate yourself from the whole Gaza, Hamas versus Israel thing, or Ukraine versus Russia thing. Just set that all aside to protect your own autonomy, and unless you want to live in a prison state, okay, make sure the central bank cannot set up that digital dollar so that you can't spend your dollars, you know, and tip a waitress, and you can't spend your dollars at the car wash, or you can't spend, you see what I'm saying? Or at a yard sale. Everything will have to be done straight through the banking centers, and they'll have to know what everything is, and it'll have to have a code, and it's endless. And of course, just like we found from the privacy issue that Ellie had on earlier with the smart vehicles, Washington State, you have no, so in the beginning you had your medical records were yours, right? Nobody had a right to them. Well, the state decided no, the state had a compelling right to all the medical records in the state. Well, since then, it's devolved into all information from all the internet providers, from the telephone providers, from any downloadable source, also through tracking of your license plate number, like if you go over Snoqualmie Pass, or if you go on, they catch you on the toll lane on the freeway, or crossing like the I-20 bridge across Lake Washington. They're keeping track of all that all the time, all right, here in Washington. And we were a beta test. I cannot go through a traffic light in my small town without a camera looking at me in the face. So if I go with a detector for radiation, all right, radar detector, and I have a radiation detector, I cannot cross an intersection without that going on. So when I cross an intersection, all the information on all my credit cards are downloaded instantly, that me and those credit cards just transited an intersection. Now, I don't have a smart vehicle, but it doesn't matter, because that's what they've done here in Washington State. Now, the state of Utah is playing games with it, okay? So now they've gone from wanting to have, now they want smart cities, not just the roundabouts, right? So they can control traffic. So they control your traffic, control your money. They can control you. And we'll talk about what's going on with universal income that they're trying to push through in 20 American major cities. So if any of this is important to you, we'll be talking about it again soon, Friday, most likely. Yeah, pass it on to friends, because this is going to affect all of us, and we need as many people with their ears to the ground and realizing what's going on in the world. And we have the capacity here between Ellie and myself to get multiple points of view out, and also show you the power dynamics that are going on in the world in kind of a not a minute way, but in a generalized way, and then give you ideas what the politics that are going on back and forth below that level. And so you can understand what's happening in the world around you. There's so many Americans that are going through life absolutely depressed because they feel like they have no control over their worlds. This thing just keeps coming at them and beating them, and they don't know why. We need to get the information out. We need to share it with our neighbors, even if our neighbors, don't like us too much. We're all Americans, right? And we are us. We fought a civil war once before. Ulysses S. Grant, because of the way he dealt with the Southern Confederates, he didn't arrest General Lee. He allowed them to go off with their sidearms so they would still be protected. They allowed them to go home with their horses because they needed to plow the ground that had been neglected for so long now. He was very, very decent after that really bloody, awful war. All right? And we became one America. Because of that one action, it started a trickle-down effect that led to, along with World War I and World War II, us becoming a superpower. Not because we wanted to, we were isolationists, but because nobody else was stepping up to the plate. Okay, so enough of that. I'm off. Ellie, if you want to say something before we go, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to share with you guys. This is important to me, and I hope that I'm helping Ellie and you all. Okay, Ellie.
That's a great show. So just subscribe and hit the like button and ring that bell so you'll get notified.
And I'll make sure Miss Miki gets some gravy, so you guys don't have to worry about my kitty cat. I keep her in eyesight all the time. All right, Ellie. Bye-bye.